What is business architecture? Now this is a long sentence. So I'm going to take this apart and then I'll read it all together because I'm going to stop here a lot at these various points. So business architecture, first word that's important, explicitly. Explicitly representing something. The word explicit. And here's what's happened to that word over time as the world has switched to instantaneous gratification, Twitter, Facebook, all this other stuff. We've had to modify what we do in order to meet that new requirement of 140 characters and a minute of attention span or less. We've had to enforce and push people, when I say enforce, to the understanding that you're not going to get a half a day anymore. As a matter of fact, what you're going to be getting is minutes. And that's where we came in with this phrase called human consumable representations. Human consumable representations. And here's the second challenge with that phrase. Human consumable, and I don't joke about this, in less than a minute and a half, 90 seconds is all you have to explain the concept. Not a 5-day seminar, not a half day, and it's just a matter of the way people are conditioned nowadays. I mean, I look at people's calendars, I just shake my head. By the way, I shake my head at my calendar too. Oh my gosh. You have to recognize what's happened. So we have to build representations that are consumable by the uninitiated in a minute and a half. And you're going to be able to do that. I don't joke about that. That's the concept of a frame of reference and a methodology that is geared toward the understanding of today. That's the business world that we're in. And I'm not going to impose a vocabulary. I can't do that. I can't do that in a minute and a half. So the first concept is the word explicitly. Unless you're Dr. Spock, who can do a Vulcan mind meld, we can't figure out what people are doing. You have to write it down, and it has to be written down in a manner that people can understand. Now, the way that we're going to write things down is not with 700 or 7,000 pages of text, or not even 70 pages of text, because people can't figure out what's going on in 70 pages or 7 pages. It's text. We're going to go back to the days of the pyramid and recognize that when we have complexity, what's the common element? Text? No. Graphical representations. Graphical representations is the key to understanding complexity. That's why blueprints are in a house, and that's why blueprints are in a 100-story building, and that's why blueprints are in an airplane, and that's why blueprints are going to be there for business architecture. And each one of those blueprints we will be able to explain to the uninitiated in a minute and a half by the end of the week. You're going to get that. You're going to be beginning to get that skill that's there. And then it gets really exciting in your enterprise. So it's the explicit representations. I want to emphasize again, you have a business architecture in your enterprise, whether it's written down or not. The problem is it's implicit. And everybody may have a different version of what they think your business looks like. And even if you write a strategy document that has N pages in it, people can't see it. Now, where do we learn that? From IT? No, from the organizational human behavioralists. We're going to give you some understanding there. They talk about this concept, and we're going to be talking about this concept more tomorrow, about the 7 ± 2 rule. What is that? It says that anything that you show to a human being can be no broader, in quotes, than 9 things, because you can't absorb it. So when we build something, when we recognize something, when we see something, we have to make it human consumable. So anything they see has to be in 5 to 9 chunks. The 5 isn't as important as the 9. And it turns out that cascades. If you have a group of people that work for you, If you have more than 9 people, you can't really do a good job of managing them. You have to build a, quote, hierarchy, a stratification. You can't have 25 people reporting to you. It doesn't work. You may think it works, but the behavioralists, the organization behavioralists, have been testing this for decades. So notice who we work with. We work with all sorts of different people because we're working with human beings, and human beings are different than compilers. And we got to get these techniques out there so we can understand things. Explicitly representing an organization. Why do we stop there? We have to recognize there's a scoping issue. And the scope is the organization. Whatever you define as a scope. It's a department, it's a division, it's an organization, it's a product. That's the scope. And here's what we have to understand. Architecting two things independently doesn't mean when we mush them together they're going to be architected. So we may have architected the most beautiful kitchen in the world, and we may have architected the most beautiful dining room in the world. And when somebody says, well, we have to pass food from the kitchen to the dining room, what we tend to say is, whoops. Because they weren't architected as a whole. You can't take two architected elements and mush them together. You have to figure out what the domain is. So this is part of your challenge. The wider the domain, the more integration possibilities there are. The smaller domain, the more interfacing is required. Those two words are not the same. Not only are they spelled differently, but they're radically different. And there is no preconceived approach on what that domain is. Let's look in the physical world. If some of you are into, high-end audio, you have your phonograph and you have your preamplifier and you have your monoblock amplifier and you have your decoder and you have all this other stuff and you got all these little components in there. And you got 17,000 million wires connecting all this stuff. That's interfacing. That provides you with a massive amount of flexibility. What's the trade-off? A massive amount of complexity and interfaces that may or may not be consistent. Or you can go out to Best Buy and get yourself a Denon amplifier that has all that stuff already built into it. And you put it on your desk or you put it on your credenza and it's all done for you. It's all integrated. What's the trade-off? Reduced flexibility. There is no one answer. There is no one answer. And that's part of the architect's skills that you gain. So let's look at this building for a second. Or anything that you're sitting in, a room. Okay? What are the interfaces here? There's integration, there's interfaces. The two logical interfaces in this room are the two doors in this room. That interfaces to the rest of the building. You can look at the window and say, well, that interfaces too. Well, that's a little bit different. A little more challenging to use that interface than the other two, but you can use that if you want. That's there. Okay? Somebody had to think about that ahead of time. That's there. It's also integrated with the rest of the building, which is integrated with the community, which is integrated with the county, which is integrated with the state, which is integrated within the country. No, it's interfaced. Most of what you and I see in the physical world is interfacing. And interfacing is there. It's a good thing. It's a bad thing. You can't say. It's different than integration. So as you move forward, there's always scrap and rework. Always. Because as you take the individual elements that are architected and put them together, it may not align perfectly. And that's what you have to change as you move forward in the physical world. We have to understand that in the enterprise world and the business world too. But what we want to do is to make that as painless as possible, because we know things are going to change. So business architecture is explicitly representing an organization. That's the domain. Two things: desired state and as-is state. This is deliberate, folks. Desired state first, then as is. Remember the human element here. Our friends in the organizational behavior community said, don't start with the as is state. People put blinders on. You start with the desired state first, and then you map the as-is state into it, and that becomes a roadmap. But you have to know where you want to go, and then you can back up. And those are going to change. Those are going to change. We know that. But the first thing you want to do is to get that vision out there in a codified form. As-is state is, quote, easy to do in comparison to desired state. We know that. But that doesn't mean we should start with the easy because it's easy. We should start with the approach of architecture. Think about that again from the physical world. Anytime you hear something from Sam, from us in our company, it goes back to, we hope, a lot of thinking about the real world. Okay? And you know, if you have an egg for a moment, you can say to yourself, what do I want to do with this? What are the things I could possibly do with this egg? Okay, versus saying I have an omelet and saying, what do I can do with that? It's a whole different domain. Okay, what do I want to do with this egg? It's an element that I have. What do I want to, let me see here. I can do all sorts of things with that. I can cook it real hard. I can paint it up during Easter. All sorts of things. That's outside the world that's there. Desired state. Think about what you need to do. Everybody has constraints. Doesn't matter what it is. Desired state and as-is states. Okay? There's the first comma. Through a set of independent, non-redundant artifacts. What's that crazy phrase? In every domain that I've talked to you about today, there are a certain set of elements. We've got to find those elements in our business architecture world. Independent, non-redundant. Why? Why do anything twice? Kind of silly. If we have a solid frame of reference, each one of those elements is different. And here's the collection of things. And we can combine those. We have our salad bar components. That's what we're looking for. Now the next thing is defining how these artifacts relate to each other. There are certain constraints that are on any architectural thing that's there. And these are the constraints. They're called the relationships. So for example, wouldn't it be nice to know, in order for me to achieve these goals, here are the processes I really have to know how to do well. Yeah, that'd be pretty good. Wouldn't it be nice to know, in order to perform those processes, here are the skills. I've got to have these skills. I can't just have the processes sitting there. I've got to have these skills that are involved in those processes, et cetera, et cetera. So we have to know the elements. This is the architecture component of business. These are the implementation, notice what I said here, constraints. These are the pre-configured things that are out there. Now so far we have another comma. And a lot of business architects stop there. They say, okay, we got a bunch of models, hang medals on us. And that's when you hear the phrase, well, what good is that? Well, frankly, notice where we are in the sentence? We're not even halfway through it yet. Because the end product is a set of prioritized, aligned capabilities. Prioritized capabilities against the business drivers. Here's the most important capability in our enterprise because it drives the enterprise to its end state. It's not the most important capability because we know how to do it or because it's very efficient or effective. Bottom up. I'm sorry if I'm breaking some myths here, unfortunately. The objective is to figure out what the capabilities are to move the organization forward and then map it into your as-is state and say, well, here's what we know how to do. And all of a sudden we can find out why things aren't being done. Hey, we got these great capabilities to sharpen pencils. Geez, we don't have any pencils. Everybody's using a pen and nobody's using pens anymore. Nobody's using pencils anymore. Okay. How about introducing keyboarding skills in the second grade rather than cursive writing in elementary schools? That's what's called desired state. Okay, I was reading some stuff about, there's a big debate about a lot of kids aren't being taught cursive. Well, that's a different debate. Let's look at it, the desired state. The desired state is not about cursive, it's about making sure they know how to use a keyboard, whether we like it or not. Or maybe voice command someday. You got to look at the desired state first, not arguing about whether or not they need the skill of an era that says we have to know how to write cursive. I'm not saying it's not important. We've got to look at the desired state. Those are the objectives we're trying to meet. Developing a set of prioritized aligned capabilities. Here's the first capability we need, the second, the third, the fourth, the fifth, the sixth, against the business drivers. Needed to meet the organization's goals. We're almost done with this definition. Here's the worst part. Communicating this understanding to stakeholders. You see the parentheses in here? It's in white font. Within a minute and a half. That's even the more important thing. We don't have all, I wish we did have all day. I've even tried this with California Cabernet. It doesn't work. They still won't give you more than a minute and a half. Okay? It's just one of those things. And advancing the organization from its as-is state to its desired state. So business architecture is explicitly representing an organization, desired state and as-is state through a set of independent, non-redundant artifacts, defining how these artifacts relate to each other, developing a set of prioritized aligned capabilities needed to meet the organization's goals, communicating this understanding to stakeholders, and advancing the organization from its as-is state to its desired state. That's what we believe business architecture is.